Page 1660. Page 1661. Page 1662. Page 1663. Page 1664. Page 1665. Page 1666. Distinguished Senator Deji Biobarakma.
Profound pleasure and respect, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Biobarakuma Degi Eremiayo, the longest name in the history of the National Assembly so far. I rise to move the motion that the votes and proceedings of the Senate as recorded on Tuesday, 9th of June 2020 be approved. I so move. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. You hold that title for now. Distinguished Senator Kola Balogun.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Kola Balogun, Oyo South Central District. I rise to second the motion as ably moved by my colleague with the longest name, the Red Chamber, to second that the votes on proceeding of Tuesday, the 9th of June 2020 be approved. I so second.
Thank you. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 9th June 2020 be approved, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 9th June 2020 is hereby approved. Letter from the minority leader. Your Excellency, notice of meeting. The National Executive of People's Democratic Party will be meeting with the PDP Senate caucus today, 10th June 2020 at 2 p.m. immediately after plenary. The meeting will hold at room 022 Senate Wing. All members are expected to attend the crucial meeting. Signed, Senator Ainaya H. Abarbe, Minority Leader. The Minority Leader is not here to tell us the crucial. I don't know whether they are going to resolve to join the APC. Anyway, so our PDP colleagues, this is for you. Petitions. Senator Patrick Ayo Akin-Elure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name remains Ayo Akin-Elure, representing Ondo Central. Mr. President, I have some petitions not yet laid but referred to the committee on ethics from the office of the President of the Senate. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petition, in line with Order 41.1 and 3, which is to present to the Senate some petitions yet to be laid from the office of the President of the Senate in order to officially place the petition in the public domain through the floor of the Senate, and for the votes and proceedings to capture the approval for referral. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, please find below a summary of the petition received from the Senate President's office for ease of reference. 1. Professor D. Mbakwe and Alhaji Balahabi Ibrahim petitioned against the PAMSEC, Director of Human Resources and Administration of various MDAs of the Federation, for deliberate failure to document, engage, and deploy qualified candidates to their various MDAs by the Federal Civil Service Commission over the years 2016 and 2019, thus leading to fraud and gross mismanagement of appropriated funds annually over the years. A call for Senate investigation. Number 2, a petition from Tolu Babaleyo Esquire against Managing Director of Zenith Bank, PLC, on behalf of Concerned City of Ondo State. The petition against the Managing Director and top management staff of Zenith Bank, PLC, for deliberate connivance with some syndicate in Ondo State government for fraudulent concealment of over 4 billion investment in funds, placements of deposits, plus accrued interest for successful administration in Ondo State, kept in account number 01031126205 for over 10 years, belonging to Ondo State government, in an account domiciled with Zenith Bank PLC, Alagbaka, Akure, Ondo State. 3. A petition from Falana Chambers on behalf of Navy Lieutenant Commander NX Akinbadejo Adeoti, NN/1256, against Chief of Naval Staff. This is a request for investigation into the trial and dismissal of Navy Lieutenant Commander NX Akinbadejo Adeoti, NN/1256, from the Nigerian Navy. Number 4, Alhaji Ibrahim Dambaba JP, against Controller General of Nigerian Correctional Service. A petition against the Controller General of Nigerian Correctional Service for illegal extension of his service beyond the statutory period of 60 years, allowed under the laws of Federal Republic of Nigeria, and gross mismanagement of public funds ranging to several billions of naira since 2016 to 2019. Number 5, petition of Reverend Captain Adebayo Olatunji Okunore against Chief of Army Staff, Nigerian Army. He requests a passionate appeal to merge my service and approve my placement into the military pension scheme. Number 6, Mr. President, a petition from Haliru Ango Mogaji against the Registrar of Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, and Federal College of Education, Zaria. An appeal for Senate intervention to ensure compliance for my reinstatement by the Provost of Federal College of Education, Zaria, on the implementation of the resolution reached at the conclusion of mediation process by the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice. Number 7, NCO Okolie Ezekiel Esquire of Suleiman M.Y. and Associates versus Action Against Hunger, a French NGO. Termination of employment so claim for compensation for injury sustained in the course of and arising out of employment in respect of Mr. Daniel Machela. Number 8, Senator Bodeola of Cornerstone Montero Schools versus FCDA. Complaint against the secret and illegal registrants of grabbing of green area, plot number E27/3277, in Nako resettlement by Urban and Regional Planning Department of the Federal Capital Development Authority. And finally, Mr. President, petition from Mr. Bibi Tayo Ajishe and 2 others of Joint Research and Allied Institution Sector Union versus Honorable Minister of Education, and appeal to follow due process in the appointment of National Institute of education planning administration director, so general, so director general, so chief executive position by the Minister of Education. Mr. President, I may wish to consider and oblige. I move that the Senate do give me permission to lay this petition officially before the Senate for referral. I so move, Mr. President. Thank you.
Let me ask if any of them is seeking judicial remedy.
Thank you, Mr. President. To the best of my knowledge, none of them is seeking judicial remedy.
You may lay the petitions. Thank you, Chairman. The petitions are referred to the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges, and Public Petitions to report back within 4 weeks. Any more petitions? Leader of the Senate. Point of order, Deputy Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Boacha Emmanuel. I represent Taraba South. Mr. President, I stand on the strength of Order 43, which allows for personal explanation on a topical issue of national significance. By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, the Senator may make a personal explanation, although there be no question before the Senate. But no controversial matter may be brought forth or forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. Mr. President, the matter in question, like COVID-19, is a matter that has dominated both international and national discourse or space. The protest, the global protest against racism, which was ignited from the action of a racist police in Minneapolis in the United States of America. We are all aware what followed. The very wicked and unspeakable manner the life of George Floyd was taken from this war. This singular incident, Mr. President, ordinarily would have generated debate, even in this chamber. Meaning, I will have invoked Order 52 also to enable us to debate this matter because of what we know that is an open demonstration of hatred or disregard for the sanctity of human life. But unfortunately, as a nation, we lack the moral capacity to accuse the United States. And I'm going to explain this. The reason being that we have a lot, Mr. President, to learn from what happened in America. For the first time, the entire world rose against the United States of America. America that claimed to be champion of democracy. America that claimed to be the champion of industrialization, the leader of civilization, the Western civilization. This matter bleeds the heart of every reasonable human being on earth. Why we cannot debate this? Because we have our challenges also to battle with, and we have something to learn. This is a protest against racism, which is a known epidemic in the United States of America since independence in 1776. And What do we have to learn from this? The white supremacy, which makes a typical white man believes he is superior to a black man, is a matter that we all know is no fault of the black man, because nobody applied to be black man before you were born to this world. Neither a white man applied to God to be born to this world. The lessons we need to learn from this is that those issues that set us against ourselves at home here, which has made us incapable of accusing America, is the lesson we should learn. Hating one another because of differences arising from region. I am from the north, you are from the south, and that has led to hatred. Tribal differences. I am from tribe A, you are from tribe B. That has led to hatred. And none of us applied to God to be born to a particular tribe. We all found ourselves in these tribes by circumstances of birth, accident of history, and nobody will have controlled this. If I were allowed maybe to apply to God to be born to this, I would have done so.
Deputy Leader, you may need to...
Mr. President, we have a lot of lessons to learn from this.
Is it a point of order against what he's saying? Okay, point of order, Senator Aliru.
Thank you, Mr. President. I remain Mohammad Aliru, representing Kebbi Central. Mr. President, I am very sorry to interject. The issue, the minority...
You raised point of order, Senator Aliru. Which order?
Although there may be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought. I'm sorry, Mr. President, the issue the minority leader is bringing is very, very controversial. It is controversial because he is making allusion to so many things that are dividing us. And I believe it is not proper just to discuss it without hearing from the other side. So I feel an issue like this, if you want us, should be brought before the floor of the Senate, and everybody should contribute, not just to hear his own personal explanation, and that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Senator Aliru. You see, under our Order 43, personal explanation is not subject to debate. And if any of our colleagues chooses to come under personal explanation, we can only listen. And if we feel that there is something that is not right said, then we can address thereafter. But we cannot stop any of our colleagues who comes under personal explanation. My take is you have to round up, and I think you need to balance what you are saying, because you can see there is already an observation that this is becoming controversial.
Well, Mr. President, I am actually left speechless. I'm shocked, because the matter I'm raising has to do with bringing us together as a nation. It is not controversial. I am shocked that it's even coming from my brother.
I think you're even making it more controversial now.
To the matter at stake. As somebody from Taraba State, I'm from Taraba South, we have a crisis that shouldn't have been there. For example, there are two communities that are fighting within themselves. What for? It's unnecessary. These are issues I want us to address, that let us learn from this hate. Is it necessary that you hate somebody because of his race? Is it necessary that you hate somebody? These are the issues. And I'm appealing to us that let us be keepers of one another. This is simple, what I'm trying to say.
I think that's the best way to round up this. Deputy Leader, Deputy Minority Leader, thank you very much. I have the privilege of commenting on what you have said, but what is essential is for us in our country to use your example to always be mindful of the diversity. And if anything, we should ensure as leaders that we use and weave this diversity into strength, and that is trying to always provide leadership, regardless of what geographical or ethnic or religious, and many of our leaders are trying very hard to do that. So I think the issue maybe deviated a little bit, and it almost turned controversial. Thank you very much. Somebody raise point of order? Okay, Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Ovi Augustine Omo Agegi on the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Alteration Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Alteration Bill 2020, SB 441, first reading.
1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Alteration Bill 2020, SB 441, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Stephanis Dogungan on the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Alteration Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Alteration Bill 2020, SB 444, first reading.
1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Alteration Bill 2020, SB 444, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of our bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Uche Lilian Equinufe on the Criminal Code Act, Cap P30, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, Amendment Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Criminal Code Act, Cap P30, LFN 2004, Amendment Bill 2020, SB 443, first reading.
Criminal Code Act Cap P30 LFN 2004 Amendment Bill 2020 SB 443 first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Ibrahim Hassan Hadeja on the Federal College of Precision Agriculture and Irrigation Technology, Establishment, etc. Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal College of Precision Agriculture and Irrigation Technology, Establishment, etc. Bill 2020, SB 411, first reading.
Federal College of Precision Agriculture and Irrigation Technology, Establishment, etc. Bill 2020, SB 411, first reading taken.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Matthew Orogide on the Federal Audit Service Commission Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal Audit Service Commission Bill 2020, SB 447, first reading.
Federal Audit Service Commission Bill 2020 SB 447, first reading taken. Leader of Senate, but before we do that, Leader. Leader, you can come under order 1B. Yeah.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I raise a motion. I come under order 1B of our Standing Order 2015 to raise a motion for this Senate to consider amending the order of the day in order to fast-track the consideration of the nomination of Justice Monica Bolner-Dongwem-Menson as the President of the Federal Court of Appeal. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Distinguished colleague, we received the communication from Mr. President yesterday for the confirmation of Justice Menson. We are adjourning tomorrow, by the grace of God, for 2 weeks to celebrate our 1-year anniversary. And there could easily be a constitutional crisis if we don't carry out the exercise of confirmation before we leave tomorrow. So this is clearly omitted in the order paper, and we find it necessary to bring it, to consider it, so that our Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters is able to do the screening exercise today, and then tomorrow we can receive and consider the report in order to ensure that we don't leave anything as important as that undone. So this is the essence of reordering or altering the order paper. So those in favor of the motion, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, the sixth order of the day is the presentation of the report of the Committee on Appropriations on the 2020 Appropriation Act Amendment Bill. Mr. President, you may wish to invite it.
I thought we will be through with that first, because it's just a referral to the Committee on Judiciary. Yes.
So that becomes the sixth order of the day now. is the referral of the request of Mr. President for to the relevant committee for consideration of the nomination of Mrs. Dongam Mercy as President of the Federal Court of Appeal.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we refer to our Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters for the screening of the presidential nominee for the President of the Federal Appeal Court, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Chairman, you have today to do the screening, and tomorrow we should be able to receive and consider the report of your exercise. Best of luck with it. Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. My highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the seventh business of the day is the presentation of the report of the Committee on Appropriations on the 2020 Appropriation Act Amendment Bill. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Barrow Jibrin, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Senator Barrow Jibrin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Barrow Jibrin. I represent Kano North. Mr. President, I stand to move that this August Senate do receive the report of the Committee on Appropriations on the 2020 Appropriation Act Amendment Bill SB 429. Mr. President, I so move.
Senator Gabriel Susam, can you second, please?
Mr. President, Dr. Gabriel Susam asked to second the motion ably moved by the Chairman of Appropriation that this Senate do receive the amended Appropriation Bill 2020. Mr. President, I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate receives the report of the Committee on Appropriation on the revised budget 2020, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Chairman, you may lead the report. Chairman, we have already resolved here that copies will be made and be distributed to all senators today. So if you haven't finished, we can excuse you because you are not presenting the report until tomorrow. Tomorrow will be presentation and consideration when everybody would have had a copy. So if you are still working, we can excuse you so that you go and complete that aspect. But ensure that every senator gets his or her copy today in good time. Thank you very much. But also let me inform the Senate that the executive, particularly the Minister of Finance, has written to request for the inclusion of the 186 billion naira, and we received the letter this morning. So that issue has now been put to rest. Chairman, do you have any more information?
I just want to say that the printers are really working hard to get the details printed. So before the end of the day, we are going to, get the details, distributed to every member of this August Senate.
Yeah, I think for you today, there is no more important thing to do than to ensure that they are doing that. So we can even excuse you so that nobody messes the Senate up. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on National Planning and Economic Affairs on the screening of the following persons enlisted in the order paper for appointment as members of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission as follows. Number 1, Salameh Mohammad Bala, Adamawa, new appointment. Number 2, Hon Alfred Egba, Esquire, Bayelsa, new appointment. Number 3, Adamu Shatima Yuguda Dibal, Borno, new appointment. Barrister Emmanuel Nwosu, Imo, new appointment. Oladele Semiu Boyega, Oshun, new appointment. Number 6, Bello Abubakar Wamako, Sokoto, new appointment. Number 7, Ahmed A. Yusuf, Taraba, new appointment. Distinguished senators will recall that the report of the committee was laid yesterday, 9th June 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Olubunmi Adetumbi, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the consideration of the report.
Senator Olubunmi Adetumbi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Olubunmi Adetumbi, representing Ekiti North. I hereby rise and move that the Senate do consider the report of the Committee on National Planning and Economic Affairs on the confirmation of the nominations of the following persons for appointment as members of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission, RAMFAC, namely Salameh Mohammad Bala Adamawa, new appointment. Honorable Alfred Egba Esquire Bayelsa, new appointment. Alhaji Adamu Shetima Yuguda Diba from Borno, new appointment. Barrister Sir Emmanuel O. Nwosu Imo, new appointment. Oladele Semiu Boyega Oshun, new appointment. Bello Abubakar Wamako Sokoto, new appointment. And Ahmed A. Yusuf Taraba, new appointment. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator Iddm, can you second the motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I remain Senator Iddm of Plateau North, and I rise to second the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on National Planning and Economic Affairs on the screening of nominees as commissioners of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate considers the report of the Senate Committee on National Planning and Economic Affairs, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Adetumbi.
Once again, thank you, Mr. President. This is the report of the Senate Committee on National Planning and Economic Affairs on the screening of nominees as commissioners of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission, RAMFA. Mr. President, the Senate at its sitting on Tuesday, 5th of May 2020, considered the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Federation, for confirmation of appointment of 7 nominees as commissioners of Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission, and refer same to the committee for further legislative action via votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 5th of May 2020. Mr. President, the names of the nominees are contained in section 2.0 of the report on page 2, and the methodology that we followed basically looked at their CVs, relevant academic certificates, income tax, asset declaration, and police report and fingerprint search. Mr. President, the findings of the committee are well captured in section 4.1 for Salameh Mohammad Bala, representing Adamawa State, and the details of our findings are there stated.
for Honorable Alfred Egba, Esquire, the findings are also contained in section 4.2 on page 4. Again, they are well stated and very easy to follow. Section 4.3 on page 6 reported our findings concerning Alhaji Adamu Shetima Waidiba representing Borno State. And the findings are there for my colleagues to peruse. Barrister Sir Emmanuel O. Nwosu representing Imo State was also considered, and the findings are stated. However, in the case of this particular nominee, we had issues regarding petitions against his nomination. We also received a report of the Department of State Services, DSS, which conveyed provisional security clearance to 6 of the 7 nominees, but declined the same for Barrister Nwosu as a result of another petition that the DSS claimed they were investigating, on which basis we could not continue further legislative work for this particular nominee. Item 4.5, Oladele Semi Ogboyega, representing Osun State. Our findings are stated, and so also for Bello Abubakar Wamako from Sokoto State. Mr. President, item 4.7 on page 11 dealt with our interactions with Alhaji A. Yusuf, representing Taraba, and our findings are stated. In conclusion, I would like to read the recommendations, Mr. President, distinguished senators. In light of our findings and what we have reported, following the endorsement by the required number of senators from each state of their representation, as contained in Appendix A, the committee hereby recommends that the Senate do confirm the nominations of the underlisted persons as Commissioners of Revenue, Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission. 1. Salameh to Mohammad Adamawa, new appointment. Honorable Alfred Egba Esquire Bayelsa, new appointment. Alhaji Adamu Shetima Diba Bono, new appointment.
Chief Whip.
Good people of Imo State, their due representation in the commission. Mr. President, distinguished senators, on behalf of the committee, I wish to most sincerely thank the Senate for the opportunity to serve in this regard. Signed, Chairman and the clerk, and the signatures of members of the committee are also attached. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Any comments? Leader of the Senate, we resolve to committee of the whole.
Mr. President, I rise to move the motion for this distinguished Senate to resolve to the committee of the whole to consider this report. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate resolves into committee of the whole to consider the report of the committee say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, we will start with the approval. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Salameh to Mohammad Bala as a member of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Honorable Alfred Egba Esquire as a member of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Alhaji Adamu Shatima Y. Dibal as a member of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Oladele Semiu Berga as a member of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Bello Abubakar Wamoko as a member of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Ahmed A. Yusuf as a member of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate. Distinguished colleagues, in the report, the chairman has indicated clearly that they want us to suspend the process of confirmation of one of the nominees, Barrister Emmanuel O. Nwosu, pending the completion of some security checks and so on. So we still have to put the question, but for the approval, but it's negative until they have to present it again if it is concluded. So I'll put the question on that, but it's going to be a negative response. When I say, can we approve? Then we say no, nay. Sorry? No, you can't say it. Please, don't say yes. Well, our committee knows better, so we should respect. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Barrister Emmanuel O. Nwosu as a member of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The nays have it. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move a motion for this, for the chair to resume plenary to report progress. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hereby second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the chair reports progress say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Committee on National Planning and Economic Affairs on the screening of Mr. President's nominees for appointment as Commissioners of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, and approved the nominations of one, Salameh Mohammad Bala, new appointment, Honorable Alfred Egba Esquire, new appointment, Alhaji Adamu Shatima Y. Dibal, new appointment, Oladele Samiu Boyega, new appointment, Bella Abubakar Wamako, new appointment, and Ahmed A. Yusuf, new appointment as Commissioners of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission. And the Senate stood down the approval of the nomination of Barrister Sir Emmanuel O. Nwosu, representing Imo State. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Thank you. We'll do confirmation now. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Salameh Mohammad Bala as a member of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Salameh Mohammad Bala is hereby confirmed as a member of Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Honorable Alfred Egba Esquire as a member of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Honorable Alfred Egba Esquire is hereby confirmed as a member of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Alhaji Adamu Shatima Y. Dibal as a member of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Alhaji Adamu Shatima Y. Dibal is hereby confirmed as a member of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Oladele Samiu Boyega as a member of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Oladele Samiu Boyega is hereby confirmed as a member of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Bello Abubakar Wamako as a member of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Bello Abubakar Wamako is hereby confirmed as a member of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Ahmed A. Yusuf as a member of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Ahmed A. Yusuf is hereby confirmed as a member of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission. Well, congratulations to the 6 of the 7 nominees of Mr. President, and we pray that they have a very successful tenure, and the task of revenue mobilization in Nigeria is a huge and massive task. It can never be as important as today when we are grappling with the issue of revenue generation and collection. So we pray that they are able to bring their various experiences to bear in the discharge of their mandate. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day, the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee of the Capital Market on the confirmation of the nominations of the following persons for appointment as Director General and Commissioners of the Security and Exchange Commission, CSEC. Number 1, Mr. Lamido A. Yuguda, Director General, Gombe State. 2, Mr. Reginald C. Kadausa, Full-Time Commissioner, Imo State. 3, Mr. Ibrahim D. Boyi, Full-Time Commissioner, Katsina. Number 4, Mr. Obistan T. Joseph, Full-Time Commissioner from Lagos State.
Distinguished senators will recall that the report of Mr. President Commander-in-Chief will report to the committee on Tuesday, 2nd June 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Ibikule Amosu, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report.
Senator Ibikule Amosu.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Ibikunle Amosu, I represent Ogun Central. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to move the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Capital Markets on the confirmation of the nominations of the following persons for appointment as Director General and Commissioners of the Security and Exchange Commission, SEC. Number 1, Mr. Lamido A. Yuguda, Director General from Gombe State. Number 2, Mr. Reginald C. Karawusa, full-time commissioner representing Imo State. Mr. Ibrahim D. Boyi, full-time commissioner from Katsina State. And finally, Mr. Udison T. Joseph, full-time commissioner from Lagos State. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I so move.
Senator Salameh Abdukari.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I rise to second the motion moved that this Senate do consider the report as laid out by the chairman of the committee for the confirmation of commissioners of SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. I do move.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate receives and considers the report of our Committee on Capital Market, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. You may let the report. Distinguished Chairman, you present the report.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Ibikunle Amosu, I represent Ogun Central. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the report of the Senate Committee on Capital Markets on the screening of the presidential nominees for confirmation as the Director General and 3 full-time executive commissioners of Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. The membership of the committee, ably shared by me, are listed as in the first page. Introduction, Mr. President. The Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, at its sitting on Tuesday, 19 May 2020, considered the request by Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, for the confirmation of the nominations of the following as Director General and Executive Commissioners of the Security and Exchange Commission, SEC, and refer same to the Committee on Nigerian Capital Markets for further legislative action, via votes and proceeding of Tuesday, 2nd June 2020. The nominees are as follows. 1, Mr. Lamido A. Yuguda, for the position of Director General from Gombe State. Number 2, Mr. Reginald C. Karawusa, full-time commissioner from Imo State. Number 3, Mr. Ibrahim D. Boyi, full-time commissioner from Katsina State. And number 4, Mr. Udison T. Joseph, full-time commissioner from Lagos. The methodology adopted by the committee. The committee requested and received from the Presidential Liaison Office of the National Assembly Matters the following documents in respect of the nominees: the CV, the relevant academic certificates, clearance letter from state security services, police reports on fingerprint search, asset declaration, and tax and income tax clearance. The nominees were invited for screening on Wednesday, 3rd June 2020. The originals of the nominees' credentials and report from Department of State Security, Nigerian Police Force, income tax clearance, and asset declaration were duly cited. Relevant questions covering their educational background, work experience, issues on current capital market trends, and current affairs were asked. The committee's findings. Arising from the screening exercise, the committee noted the CV of Mr. Yuguda is in 5-1, and his professional qualifications are listed as well. His executive education programs are also listed. But let me, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, just quickly go to the employment history. Mr. President, Mr. Yuguda has served in various capacities, which include the following: Director, Reserve Management Department, Central Bank of Nigeria. He was also involved in disciplined risk-based approach in formulating investment guidelines for both internal and external managers, and was particularly rewarded when CBN weathered the global financial crisis of 2008 to 2009. Mr. President, he was at one point in time the Secretary Investment Committee of CBN, and he has worked in several departments of the CBN. But Mr. President, during the questions and answer, his response to questions, the nominee responded very well to issues and questions raised during the screening exercise. He assured the committee that if given the opportunity to serve, and if confirmed, he will utilize his vast experience obtained to advance the cause of commission and ensure that investors' confidence is boosted. The committee observation, the committee observed that Mr. Lamido Abubakar Yuguda is qualified to be confirmed as the Director General of the Security and Exchange Commission, SEC. Mr. Reginald Shukudi Karawusa. Again, Mr. Karawusa from Imo State was drilled to ensure to find out the competence for the post in which he was being screened for. He responded to questions directed at him by the committee satisfactorily and exhibited sufficient knowledge and competence during the screening exercise. The committee observed that Mr. Reginald Chukuma Karawusa is qualified to be confirmed as a full-time commissioner of the Security and Exchange Commission. Mr. Ibrahim Boyi, he too was screened, and he was able to satisfy the committee in his response to questions addressed at him with regards to his work experience. The committee therefore considers Mr. Ibrahim Boyi suitable for appointment as full-time commissioner for the Security and Exchange Commission. And finally, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Mr. Obison Temidayo was also screened, and the nominee has successfully gone through the process of security and police screening and answered all the questions satisfactorily during the screening exercise. The committee therefore considers Mr. Obison Temidayo Joseph suitable for the appointment as a full-time commissioner at the Security and Exchange Commission, SEC. And finally, the overall recommendation of the committee, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, owing to the fact that the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is only responsible for confirmation of nominees for appointment and sent by Mr. President, and not to dabble into propriety or otherwise of soft nomination, the committee and its members therefore restricted their work to powers conferred on us by the National Assembly, conferred on the National Assembly by the 1999 Constitution as amended. Accordingly, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the committee recommended that the Senate confirms the 4 nominees as appointed by Mr. President, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to the Board of the Security and Exchange Commission, SEC. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, on behalf of the committee, I thank you for your attention and the opportunity given for us to serve. I so move, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Senator Sirajuddin Basiru Ajibola.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Dr. Surajuddin Ajibola Bashiru. I represent Osun Central Senatorial District. While I have looked at the report of the committee, I stand up to make this observation with all sense of responsibility and in accordance with the oath of allegiance to the Constitution. In page 9 of the report, the first two paragraphs read, Mr. President, the distinguished colleagues, owing to the fact that the Senate of the Federal Government of Nigeria is only responsible and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, and I emphasize, do not dabble into the propriety or otherwise of such nomination. I say with all sense of responsibility that the essence of the confirmation power of the National Assembly is to consider the propriety or otherwise of nomination made by the President, particularly in line with the provision of the Constitution. It will mean that if this is taken, it will mean that any nomination made, even in clear violation of minimum requirements for such offices, the Senate will go ahead and approve the recommendation. I will say that with respect, while not opposing the recommendation and while commending the thoroughness of the work done on each of the nominees, this paragraph should be expunged from the recommendation so that it will not be said that the National Assembly is just, as some traducer will say, a mere rubber stamp. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much for that intervention. The committee felt that way, but personally, I am in line with, in tune with your submission. If the executive presents confirmation requests and there is something that we think is not right, we should be able to say this is not right. They should either present another person who would be more appropriate. But I agree completely that it's not every nomination that we just confirm. Where a nominee fell short of certain standards, definitely we will say this is not the kind of person that should do that kind of job, that if he is confirmed, he would be given the responsibility to. So I want to thank you for the intervention. But that is not to say that we can just entertain every petition and the rest of it if they are not properly channeled to the Senate. But for propriety, yeah, we stick with that. Senator Albert Basi Akpan.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished and respected colleague, Senator Albert Basi Akpan, Akwa Ibom Northeast. Mr. President, I just to draw the attention of the Senate to the fact that as a caucus in this chamber, we have raised a petition on behalf of this caucus, and that petition was referred to the Senate Committee on Ethics. But however, since that petition was presented on Tuesday, we were only able to approve the vote and proceedings just yesterday, which I believe to be communicated to the committee. But Mr. President, I can also confirm to you that as colleagues, we have been engaging ourselves as regards the content of that petition. I'm only drawing the attention of the Senate, Mr. President, that we have no issues at all against this report, but we were just thinking that the report of that committee would probably be considered with this, so that we can clear all at the same time without any form of ambiguity.
So the petition is hereby withdrawn. No, the report wouldn't have any significance by the time we are through with this here. I think I will appreciate, let me commend you, all the three of you from Akwa Ibom, for being able to sort out the initial hiccup, and that is the way to go. For nominees, when any senator or senators from a state don't appear to support a nominee. It's for the nominee to engage with his senators to explain whatever gray areas there are, because some of the objections may not be necessarily unnecessary. They may be as a result of lack of engagement. So thank you very much, the Akwa Ibom contingent, and therefore that petition now, the Senate Committee on Petition, I think you can keep the petition in your this thing. You don't have to report because it won't have any consequence. Senator Deputy Chief Whip. The chairman wants to intervene.
Just say a word or two on what Senator Bashir said, without prejudice to what he said, which I agree with. But this very particular line relates to the petition that Senator Basi Akpan just talked about. When we conducted the screening, we got in touch with them, with all the senators, to explain to them that this is not in particular referring to any of the nominees here. They were saying that people from Akwa Ibom are being church changed, and that they want Mr. President to give Akwa Ibom more slots, more recognition. And that's what we are trying to say, that that petition will not hinder our work. I think I should just say that. Of course, we know that's our responsibility in this hallowed chamber to ensure that we do the right things at all times. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that clarification. The matter is rested here. Senator Sabi Ali Abdullah.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Aliu Sabi Abdullahi, Niger North. I want to second this particular report. The comments that were made earlier, nobody referred to the work of the committee. So I want to commend the committee for the work they've done, and to say that it's a very straightforward issue. The nominees are amply qualified, and I think when looked at against the background of the contribution by Senator Ajibola, it is apt to say that the committee's work is actually to look at the propriety of the nomination. And I think even in the past, we've had cause to say, look, this nomination is not appropriate, it's not correct, and so we have returned it back, and to that extent, corrections are made and brought back. So I think this is something the Senate has been doing, and this is not an exception. So with this, I want to say that, of course, this report is in order, and the Senate should please consider.
Leader of the Senate will go to Committee of the Whole.
President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move a motion for this distinguished chamber to resolve into the Committee of the Whole to consider this report. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate resolves into Committee of the Whole to consider the report, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, we do the approval here. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Mr. Lamido A. Yuguda as Director General of the Security and Exchange Commission, SEC? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Mr. Reginald C. Karawusa as a full-time Commissioner of the Security and Exchange Commission, SEC. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Mr. Ibrahim D. Boyi as a Commissioner of the Security and Exchange Commission, SEC? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Mr. Obisan T. Joseph as Commissioner of the Security and Exchange Commission, SEC? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I move the motion for the President to resume plenary in order to report progress. I so move. Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second that the Chairman revert to plenary to report progress. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate reverts to plenary for the Chair to report progress, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Committee on Capital Market on the screening of Mr. President's nominees for appointment as Director General and Commissioners of the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, and approved the nominations of Mr. Lamido A. Yuguda, Director General from Gombe State, Mr. Reginald C. Karawusa, full-time Commissioner from Imo State, Mr. Ibrahim D. Boyi, full-time Commissioner from Katsina State, and Mr. Obisan T. Joseph, full-time Commissioner from Lagos State as Director General and Commissioners of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Thank you. Confirmation. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Mr. Lamido A. Yuguda as Director General of the Security and Exchange Commission, SEC? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Mr. Lamido A. Yuguda is hereby confirmed as Director General of the Security and Exchange Commission, SEC. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Mr. Reginald C. Karawusa as Commissioner of the Security and Exchange Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Mr. Reginald C. Karawusa is hereby confirmed as Commissioner of the Security and Exchange Commission, SEC. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Mr. Ibrahim D. Boyi as Commissioner of the Security and Exchange Commission, SEC? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Mr. Ibrahim D. Boyi is hereby confirmed as Commissioner of the Security and Exchange Commission, SEC. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Mr. Obisan T. Joseph as Commissioner of the Security and Exchange Commission, SEC? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Mr. Obisan T. Joseph is hereby confirmed as Commissioner of the Security and Exchange Commission, SEC. Well, congratulations to all of them. And this is a time that our Security and Exchange Commission must be efficient and effective in ensuring that we are able to sustain this. We are able to ensure that this country attracts and sustains foreign, not only domestic investments, but foreign direct investments. People should bring their money and feel safe with their money and their investments here. This is essential. We have to create the very enabling climate for investors to be attracted and retained here in the country. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, My highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is the second reading of the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industry Content Act 2010, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2020. Distinguished Senator will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 19th May 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Aliu Sabi Abdullahi to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Senator Aliu Sabi Abdullahi.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I'm Aliu Sabi Abdullahi, Niger North Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on this very critical and important bill, which seeks...
The distinguished Deputy Chief Whip, is it possible to give us an abridged presentation? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. The bill I seek to have your approval to be read the second time was read in this chamber on 12th May 2020. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this bill is apt and fills one of the objectives of the legislative agenda of the Ninth Senate, and is also aligned to our economic diversification policy objectives of the federal government under President Mohammad Buhari and some of his key ministries, and indeed many industry and academic experts and professionals as far as the issue of local content is concerned. The general scope of the bill has 209 clauses and provide comprehensive and all-inclusive provision to address the local content needs of all the sectors of the Nigerian economy. The bill makes for interagency and intersector synergies and complementarities needed in a complex economy like Nigeria. The upgrading of the existing Nigerian Content Management Board, established by the Nigerian Content Management Board under Section 69 of the Logic Act, into a one-stop shop local content commission is an innovation that should be seen as an homegrown solution to our economic development and diversification efforts. The bill seeks to ensure the following: A, application of local content principles to transactions in all sectors of the Nigerian economy where regulated activities are carried out. B, development of local capacities and capabilities in the value chain of all the sectors of the Nigerian economy through education, skills transfer, and expertise development, transfer of technology and know-how, and active research and development programs. It also has the achievement of minimal local employment level and in-country spend for the provision of goods and services in the value chain of all the sectors of the Nigerian economy. Strengthening of the international competitiveness of Nigerian domestic businesses, the achievement and maintenance of control by Nigerians over the economic development initiatives and activities in Nigeria, the provision of a robust and transparent monitoring and reporting system to ensure delivery of Nigerian local content. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the board of the commission sought to be created is to be headed by the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who by our constitutional arrangement is the chairman of the National Economic Council of Nigeria. Ministers of key sectors like petroleum, solid minerals, works, trade and investment, health, finance, communication technology, science and technology, governor of the central bank, and key stakeholders in these sectors, among others, are to be members of this board of the commission to ensure that high-level policy decisions are not only taken but capable of being implemented. The high-level status of the Vice President will also ensure indirectly bringing the National Economic Council into the full picture of the needs of the Commission, which comprises of state governors to buy into the local content policies. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the other argument I want to talk about here is the fact that we had the local content in the oil and gas. And the intendment here is to leverage on the experience of the local content in the oil and gas to bring in other sectors because it's the same economy. And I believe very strongly that we are going to achieve incremental growth and development in the economy when we do that. The other point I would like to add here is, I'm trying to be brief, so I'm not reading the lead debate blow by blow. The other point I want to make here is directorates for the sectors like oil and gas, solid minerals and metallurgy, ICT, health, construction, power and manufacturing are independent in their operations while maintaining policy synergy and complementarities through the very high-level board of the Commission to be chaired by the Vice President. The other point I want to make also is that the funds to be generated by these directorates are sectoral. That is, the fund for the oil and gas is independent of the fund for power, local content. This is to enable us, allow every of these sectors to drive their own local content without intrusion from another. In this regard, the present lessons learned in the operation of the Logic Act 2010 is expected to serve as the takeoff point, the standard, the compass, and the risk manager for the need or the next level Nigerian local content development efforts. We must value the lessons of our experience so that we make substantial progress. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it is also proposed that the directorate are situated in various states where activities of the sector are predominant. This is because the focus of the bill is local content development, requiring that the operational base of the directorate is as close as possible to the epicenter of the various sectoral activities. In the above light, there is no reason for any sector to be in fear, except, of course, the fear of supervision, which will be at that high level. Highlights of the bill are provided, but of note, let me say that in page 4 of 9, formalization of artisanal solid mineral miners will be achieved as provided under clauses 101 to 108. The same thing, the petroleum refiners, because, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, times without number we've been told that the reason why the cost of production of oil in Nigeria is high is attributable to also crude oil theft. And of course, we have this very serious issue in the Niger Delta, and we believe it is time for us to stop criminalizing people who are interested in local refining in the Niger Delta, or who are interested in artisanal mining in the various solid minerals community. It is time for us to standardize their operation, formalize them, and bring them on board so that through local content efforts, we can upgrade them and let them contribute to the economy. This has been amply taken care of in this bill. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, we also have provided setting up of the local content development and monitoring units in MDAs that may have the need for it. But because it's under a commission, the commission will set the standards and, of course, deploy staff to where they are needed. Now, incorporation of Nigerian professionals in the diaspora to bring in technical support for local content development in the country has also been properly captured in this particular bill. There's also provision for statutory measures to prevent abuse of the issuance of work permits and expatriate quotas in order to integrate and fully utilize available local workforce. There's also special provision for dispute resolution, so that we don't have to have people going through the court, and the alternative dispute resolution that has been provided here is a model that has been practiced in some other climes where they are very serious with their local content in solid minerals and the like. And so here we have made provision for that. So the fear of a litigation forever has been amply taken care of. Now, there's also establishment of national supplier database to ensure that every indigenous Nigerian company or Nigerian citizen with expertise in science, engineering, technology, and other areas or fields of expertise, including even law, are identified and captured in the database so that they can support the local content development efforts. We've also made elimination of the issue of power so that through the local content in power, we are able to ensure that there is targeting of industries in certain locations through the provision of this bill. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the other point I would like to add here is there's provision for publication of annual Nigerian Content Performance Report, which will enable us to see the progress being made across the various directorates. Provision of comprehensive penal sections to prevent abuse, ensure compliance has also been made through clause 190 to 192. Benefits Nigeria will gain from this bill. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, many times, Mr. President, that is President Mohammad Buhari, has made it very clear that we need to start looking inwards. And I would like to quote here. He said, "I will stand my ground and maintain my provision that under my watch, the old Nigeria is slowly but surely disappearing, and a new era is rising, in which we grow and what we eat and consume what we make. We will change our habits and we will change Nigeria." Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, what this bill seeks to do is to ensure that we look inwards. And there is no better time to do that than now, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, which has exposed our economies. And so this bill has taken note of all of this and has made ample provision to ensure that those sectors I have mentioned will actually have local content effort. And the idea of one commission is to ensure that there is proper synergy, will reduce intersectoral crisis, because when you talk about local content, if you are doing an ICT local content, it's likely you may have manufacturing. If they are together, they are able to create synergy. But when they are separate, definitely there may be areas of contention. Accordingly, this bill seeks to contribute to high-level policy intent and direction, and have provided additional information which my colleagues can look at. And I believe that if this bill is allowed to see the light of the day, it will go a long way in solving a number of issues that we have contended. Finally, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, let me say that having one executive body as proposed here will enable us to achieve policy coherence, policy alignment. It will bring in synergy, it will bring in inclusion, and above all, it will allow us to formalize, standardize, retool, and empower our local refiners, small-scale miners, rather than criminalizing them as it is currently done, leading to loss of severe revenues. In the past 1 week, there are many news items showing that in solid minerals, for example, we are losing billions. In the petroleum refining local sector, we are also losing billions of dollars. This bill seeks to achieve something in reducing all of these things. I therefore call on my colleagues to support this bill.
Sonnet Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. My highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I am rising at this point, so that we can be able to focus the issues on this debate clearly. I'm not taking any position, but just making clarifications so that when we discuss these issues, we should discuss them in the proper context so that there will be better understanding of the issues. Currently, we have a local content development commission, which is talking mainly, the law is about the oil and gas industry. And it's established, and we have a committee that is looking at it. Yesterday, there was a presentation by the chairman of the local content committee on the universalization of the local content, while retaining the current act as it is with the oil and gas industry as the commission
which we now have. That bill that the Secretary did yesterday was to have a local content law that does not recognize the creation of another commission, but that we domicile local content issues in all the ministries so that local content will become an embedded part of the operations of all government establishments when contracts, works, several other issues are being presented, so that we preserve the current oil and gas local content commission law as it is, but then have a law that mandates ministries, MDAs, and agencies to ensure the observance of local content issues, in the routine ways in which they are operating. Now, in all the non-oil other sectors of the economy. So it means that the solar minerals operators, the agricultural operators, the works operators, whatever, in all the other sectors of the economy, the MDAs will now domicile local content principles in that act, in their operations. Now, what this particular bill is trying to do is to repeal and reenact another local content commission to broaden the operation of the current oil industry so that you can broaden it and add several departments dealing with several other areas, of the operation of the local content principle under one single commission. So that one was a repeal and reenactment of the current so that it can become broad enough, the one that he's talking about now, so that it can be broad enough to handle local content issues, across the entire economy. So these are the two issues, so that when we are focusing the debate and the way in which we are going to debate the issues, we see exactly what is going on so that we don't go around. But at the end of the day, I think the issues are going back to the same department or to the same committee, and both the chairman and the vice chairman of the committee, he is the vice chairman of the committee, the chairman of the committee is also there. So when they come to harmonization, I know at a point this Senate will have to come with some greater wisdom to be able to take one way or the other. So, but we should be prepared for the way in which this thing is going. That's why I just want to make this clarification.
Senator George Thompson Sekimo.
Mr. Senate President, my distinguished colleagues, I am Senator George Thompson Sekimo. Mr. President, when in, I think, the 6th Senate or so, when the local content bill was debated, all of us knew that there was a pressure from outside to be sure it was not even passed. The reason was simple. If you do so, somehow you're going to tie down their hands in doing the things they always do and get away with it. But after it went through, we have seen how supportive that Local Content Act has helped this country. So the first thing, I want to say that it's a very good move to broaden the Local Content Act to other sectors of the economy. It's a good bill. The only snag we are going to have now is what the leader has explained to us here. The one that came yesterday has suggested, let the one that is in existence remain as it is. Another one be established. This one has suggested, let us broaden the act and bring all of them under one leadership. The question is this: will broadening them reduce the efficiency of the commission? That's a major issue because the oil and gas sector is working very well. And I believe that if we bring in, as the bill suggested, solid minerals, mining, construction, power, information and technology and all that, into one bogus bill, and under one commission. I don't think it will destroy anything. I don't think it will destroy anything. Why do we have for local content and have two different acts for local content? I don't understand that one very well. But all of them, whichever one it is going to be under the vice president. So for me, I will agree that we have an inclusive law that will carry all the sectors along together. More so, I also know that government is not going to spend extra money to fund it. It will be self-financing. So if it will be self-financing, we have no problem. But creating two laws, I don't know how that one is going to work. Two laws in the same thing, local content and then two laws. I don't understand it properly. So I'm thinking that we allow the bill to be all-inclusive and have it go as one bill, and then under the supervision of the Vice President. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Mohammad.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I'm here, Mohammad representing KB Center. Mr. President, I rise to also lend my voice toward the leader and also my good friend, Senator George Thompson Sikibo said. There is need to consolidate and harmonize the two laws. Luckily, it's the same committee that will be charged with the responsibility of doing this. Mr. President, this is a very important bill because we are now under the era of diversification of the Nigerian economy. And there is need for us to ensure that Nigerians play a dominant role in this diversification exercise. Right now, under the mining sector, if you go, there are so many foreigners. They only engage Nigerians as laborers. Equally, in education, healthcare, agriculture, the higher level people that occupy high positions are all foreigners. And we don't have Nigerians participating in this. This is why I support, the harmonization of the two laws together for the purpose of ensuring that Nigeria gets good benefits. Mr. President, if we do this, we can generate a lot of employment to Nigerians. We can stop capital flight, and we can also improve the contribution to GDP. And I see the wisdom in saying that the two laws should come together. And I urge all my colleagues to do the same. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Albert Bashir.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished and respected colleagues, Senator Albert Bashir Akpan, Akwa Northeast. Mr. President, let me thank my brother Blair Aliyu Sabi for his lead debate. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I think there is no gainsaying that as a result of the implementation of the current NOJIC Act in the oil and gas industry, we have deepened the participation of local content in the oil and gas industry. And I believe within the context of this argument, Mr. President, we can also leverage on extending its implementation to the other sectors of our economy. But Mr. President, one thing is certain. I can inform the Senate that studies have shown that in the next 40 years, oil and gas will still play a major economic role globally. Therefore, Mr. President, I'm also very certain that we are also sure that this is not the best time for the oil and gas sector. Mr. President, it has been established in this sector that in the next 18 months, there is no major investment decision that will be taken in the sector because all the investors in the sectors are panicked
that let them watch and see events that will come in the next couple of months. But be that as it may, Mr. President, any news as regards any law that will affect the stability of the Nigerian oil and gas industry, we must be careful about it. And in doing this, because when an investor is looking at his investment basket, he is looking at it from the global perspective. Nigeria is inside that basket. Angola is inside that basket. Mexico is inside that basket. Every major oil producing country is inside the basket. An investor's decision will be based on where he can put his money on the basis of the stability of his law and where he can also get his money. Mr. President, it is very simple. And I thank the leader for not letting the chairman of local content and the vice chairman confuse us. Because this is, I believe that this, as a committee, the committee would have actually argued, harmonized, and then present a common front as a committee. Mr. President, if you look at the procurement process, for example, the way contract is procured in the oil and gas sector is quite different from what we have in other sectors. So I believe that when the chairman of local content came yesterday, he was looking at the Bureau of Procurement structure, where every procuring entity aligns with the law. But my brother Sabi is coming today, he says, no, let us look at a commission. The disadvantage of looking at a commission and the disadvantage of looking at the different procurement units aligning with the law is different. A commission looking at the constitution, if you look at the commission, bringing oil and gas into this commission, definitely you are bound to, if care is not taken, because each of the sectors are not in alignment. We are trying to introduce the law, and the oil and gas sector has already established a trend. Therefore, if you have to look at it, we must be very, very strategic in looking at that. But that can be done at the public hearing and at the committee level. So I align myself with all the sentiments. But I believe that as a country and as a Senate, we must look at what can best give us the best outcome. But there's no saying, Mr. President, that implementing the local content in other sectors of our economy will be good for Nigeria. Because in the oil and gas industry today, we have achieved more than 40%. It's the industry that was governed and ruled by foreigners. But I can tell you that we have, within the context of the implementation of this act, we have developed our local content and local capacity, and we have also domesticated most of the issues that we were not used to before. So I align myself with all the sentiment that have been expressed, and I want to recommend that this should go to the public hearing, because as part of our lawmaking process, whatever comes out of the public hearing will also guide us in further processing of this bill. As also the President.
Senator Degi Biobarakma.
Thank you, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. Well, I thank my friend, my colleague. My mic is on. Maybe my voice is not loud enough, but my mic is on. I thank my colleague and my friend, Senator Savi. I can't shout. Okay, I should put it on.
Your Excellency, you are protected. Go ahead.
The lead debate, but yesterday I spoke when the chairman of the local content committee made his presentation during his lead debate. And today, distinguished Senator Sabi has come up with another perspective to it. For me, For me, sincerely speaking, it would appear that we are intending to bite too much than we can chew. The truth about the matter in this country is that it is very easy to formulate policies, programs, and projects. It is also easy to enact a law. But it is very difficult, a different kettle of fish altogether, to implement it maximally to the benefit of Nigerians. For me, as we all know, the oil and gas industry has been properly developed and functioning effectively. We are yet to focus on the other sectors of the economy in terms of research and development and strengthen their operations. So why don't we make efforts to also concentrate and focus on the other sectors and ensure that they are growing and developing effectively, you know, before we talk about even a commission. For now, for me, it is premature for us to think about bringing all the sectors under one umbrella in the name of one commission, you know, to regulate and of course enforce local content, you know, issues. So, I don't rise to support and speak favorably in this proposed bill to repeal the existing Local Content Act. It is not necessary because that sector is doing very well and we can all see the gains that we have realized so far. My prayer is that let us focus on other sectors. For example, the solid mineral sector, the mining sector, to see how we can also develop these sectors effectively with a law. And that's why I supported the lead debate by the chairman of the Local Content Committee yesterday. And it was well thought out and very appropriate that we formulate another law that will take care of other sectors of the economy and allow this oil and gas sector that is very professional, very technical, that is germane, and of course critical to the development of our economy, to independently function. This is my thinking, and I think it is right. My colleagues, I urge you to support this position, and let us not repeal that act that is already existing. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Betty Apiafi.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Betty Apiafi. I'm from Rivers State. Mr. President, I agree with my colleagues who have said it is necessary for us to have a Nigerian content law to cover other aspects of Nigeria. But I think repealing the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industry Content Act of 2010 is absolutely not necessary. The reason why I say so is that, first of all, we are having legal issues in the oil and gas industry, and that is why we have not had more investments coming into the oil and gas industry. Because investors who come into the oil and gas industry are very conscious of the legal structure of the environment they want to invest their money. And this oil and gas content law, they are very comfortable with it. And the governance structure of the oil and gas content law is acceptable. It was what was agreed on and enacted in 2010. And the gains of that has been enormous. The kind of technology we have in the oil and gas sector, and right now, even the number of Nigerians who are able to actually participate in the oil and gas sector is still very minimal. And it's a very sensitive sector to our economy. In the years ahead, we're still going to be dependent on oil and gas as a mainstay in Nigeria, as a mainstay of our income in the Nigerian economy. So I would suggest that we leave the oil and gas industry content law. Like the chairman of the committee argued yesterday, he said it is important for us to have a content law, a local content law for other aspects of our economy. but that we can utilize the current, the existing government structure to implement that, just the way we have been implementing procurement. We can have departments in the various ministries responsible for implementing such policies. And like the procurement policy, before you get any approvals for your procurement, there has to be evidence that the local content aspect of your local content requirement has been met for you to get a certificate of objection. And also for the Federal Executive Council to approve any project, there has to be evidence that the local content aspect has been achieved. That way, we don't have to create a new commission. Like when this bill was presented today, the mover of the bill said we need to have agents representations in various geographical zones of the country. We are going to be incurring more additional costs if we do that, but using the existing structure we have in the ministries, where you utilize the processes we use in procurement, we will not be incurring any additional cost to the government, and yet we will still achieve the same thing. So it's important for us to keep the Oil and Gas Content Development Act because of the sensitive and very technical nature of that, and it has worked. Like we said, I keep saying every day, we are still battling with the PIB bill, and investment is not coming to Nigeria because the investors are not very sure of the legal framework we have to back their investments up in oil and gas. But with the Content Development Act for oil and gas, they're a bit comfortable. Why don't we leave what is working and focus on the other aspects of the economy and utilize the structures we already have in the various MDAs to set it up? So I'd like to suggest that by the time this bill gets to the committee stage, that the two committees should harmonize, but we should leave the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industry Content Act of 2010 intact and look at implementing the Nigerian Content Development Act 2020 as suggested by the chairman local content committee yesterday.
Senator Amiro Oketa.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I remain Ahmed Babaketa, representing Katana North. Let me start with the argument of my distinguished colleague, Senator Betty Afefi. The reason why why the board was created was actually because of the failure of the ministry and the petroleum subsector as a whole. So if that is the case, then I cannot see how you are trying to push away these responsibilities to the ministry when ab initio you knew that the whole idea of creating the board was because there was a failure in local content issues in Nigeria. Let us be frank here, and let's try to be responsible to all Nigerians in the sense that these local content issues that we are saying are not a peculiar issue to oil sector. It is with everything. Take the construction industry, for example. It's a huge construction, it's a huge business in Nigeria. And all the players in constructions are foreigners. There are very few companies that operate as indigenous Nigerian companies. So the whole idea is to extend these local content issues to affect, for example, the construction industry, which we are losing a huge sums of money. Let the investment not come. As long as we are going to develop our own capacity in Nigeria, the investment will eventually come. So we shouldn't bother about investment. Investment is not coming. How did China make it? They restricted in developing their own economy through local means. So we are only saying that extend this local content issue that we think, I'm not even sure, I've been in the oil sector and I know how bad it is even as yet with the board. So I wouldn't call it a success. But let's even assume that it's a successful, the board is successful. It's still not enough what we are getting from this, the value Nigeria is getting from the board is not enough. So please, let's have a holistic approach to these local content issues. Today is oil, tomorrow could be construction. We are talking of mining, somebody just raised the issue of mine, which is true. But if you don't have the capacity, you will still be here staying, walking around while some foreigners will just come, make money and do everything and go out with it. I don't think this one has any issues. It's true that whatever is working well, we should allow it. But I don't see any reason why we should not tinker with the act to expand it to various sectors of economy, our economy that will help the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, I am Kabiru Gaya, representing the people of Kano South. Mr. President, I would like to commend the mover of this bill, Senator Sabi, and I believe that this bill is long overdue. We have the local content on gas, oil and gas, and we've been talking that that sector should be improved to other areas where we can generate more revenue and give Nigerians opportunity to interact and benefit from this industrial. The local content, I believe that the gas and oil and then the issue where Senator Sabi raised this bill, will be merged together in order to have a standard local content bill general, not in one sector. Otherwise, we will have local content on different sectors. So I would support that we merge this in together, Mr. President, and produce a standard bill that covers all sectors so that Nigerians can benefit in more areas. As spoken by the last speaker that foreign companies come in, and instead of going by the local content, we don't have that bill for other industries. You find that they come as contractors. And when they come to this country with machineries, even they come with drivers. They bring foreigners to be driving or to be using the equipment, while Nigerians, we have Nigerians qualified to operate those equipments or machines. So therefore, this bill is very important, and I think we make good history by merging this bill and produce a standard local content bill general. Thank you, Mr. President.
I'll put the question now. Those in favor that this will be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to repeal the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industry Content Act 2010 and to enact the Nigerian Local Content Development and Enforcement Commission Act to establish the Nigerian Local Content Development Commission and to provide for comprehensive framework, structures, programs, and schemes for the institutionalization and strengthening of the Nigerian local content in all sectors of the Nigerian economy for self-sufficiency, job creation, international competitiveness of Nigerian domestic business and economic diversification, and for matters connected therewith, 2020 second reading.
A bill for an act to repeal the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industry Content Act 2010 and to enact the Nigerian Local Content Development and Enforcement Commission Act, to establish the Nigerian Local Content Development Commission, and to provide for comprehensive framework, structures, programs, and schemes for the institutionalization and strengthening of Nigerian local content in all sectors of the Nigerian economy for self-sufficiency, job creation, international competitiveness of Nigerian domestic business and economic diversification, and for matters connected there with 2020 second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Local Content to report back within 4 weeks. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. I think the issue is not whether we don't need local content application in other sectors. The issue now is how do we bring the two bills, synchronize them, and form one and have one law that will guide the local content environment. I think the Committee on Local Content would have this task, but there should be stakeholding considerations. When you will invite the stakeholders, definitely there will be a lot of ideas that will be presented at such a gathering. So the committee has 4 weeks to report back to the Senate. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is the second reading of the Rape and Insurgency Victims Stigmatization Prohibition Bill 2020. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 10th December 2019. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Mohammad Sani Musa to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Senator Sani Musa.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, my name is Mohammad Sani Musa, representing Niger East Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, with your kind indulgence, may I lead the debate on the general principles of this bill. I stand before you today to lead the debate on Bill for Rape and Insurgency Victims Stigmatization Prohibition Bill 2019. This bill was first read in this hallowed chamber on the 10th of December 2019. I am delighted to have the opportunity to lead the debate on the bill for an act to prohibit the stigmatization of victims of rape and insurgency in order to encourage victims of rape to testify in court and victims of insurgency to be integrated into the community of his or her choice, and reintegration of victims and children of victims of rape and insurgency, and to provide for the prosecution and punishment of any person or group of persons who stigmatize such victims with the view to uphold and protect their fundamental right to dignity and freedom of association as provided by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and for other related matters. Mr. President, you are all aware of the scourge of the instabilities in most of our communities in Nigeria, ranging from insurgency, banditry, and violence against women, children, and even men. Presently, rape is now a common phenomenon and occurs worldwide. In fact, available data suggests that in some countries, 1 in 5 women report sexual violence or being raped by an intimate partner, and up to 1/3 of girls report forced sexual initiations. This also cut across diverse age range of victims, ranging from young toddlers, children, to even old victims aged up to 70 years old, with over 70% of the victims under 18. The objectives of this bill, Mr. President, the bill is to provide the legal and institutional framework for the protocol for reintegration of victims of rape and insurgency in Nigeria. If this bill is passed into law, it will certainly provide a new lease of life for victims of rape and insurgency in this country. The justice system in Nigeria in this direction is incredibly inept, and for rape cases, this is even more traumatic. A rape victim goes to police to report, and the policeman or woman tells the victim to go and sort it out at home, as it is a domestic case. And the consequences of such act is that the victim is left at the mercy of the society without protection. This sort of stigma has prevented many survivors from reporting abuse and seeking justice. Victims of insurgency and other violent acts need this kind of laws that will not only promote gender equality, the empowerment of women and girls as fundamental to all efforts to prevent and address sexual violence in conflict, but but can also progressively uplift such victims by making sure that assistance was not subjected to undesirable limitations, such as denial of a normal livelihood, employment, or the provision of sexual and reproductive health care to help survivors in a standardized manner. Mr. President, distinguished senators, the bill, if passed to law, shall also ensure that the victims of rape and insurgency are reintegrated into the society and given equal rights and opportunities as exist for every citizen of Nigeria. We are all living witnesses to the upsurge of the criminality of rape and the destruction of lives being perpetrated by those coward criminals in our communities. And coupled with the fact that our country has an extremely low conviction rate for rape and sexual abuses, despite the increase in violence against women in recent years. You will all recall that we deliberated recently in this hallowed chamber on violence against women. It is high time we legislate and take actions that will address some of the shortcomings in Nigeria's legal system on issues of stigmatization for victims of rape and violence, where the burden to prove rape or abuse often lies in evidence of it also being a violent attack. And these are not the only challenges facing survivors. Nigeria, home to an estimated 205 million people, has no legislation that will protect or facilitate care and support of survivors. Part of the objectives of this bill is to provide legal solutions and norms to the serious psychological and traumatic experiences such victims suffered, with a view to help the victims understand and deal better with what they are going through and see themselves equal like all of us, to guarantee and protect their rights and privileges like any one of us. Let me use this opportunity to condemn the brutal gang rape and murder of the many, especially the most recent victims. And just as the nation is still coming to terms with this gross violation, another dastardly act was committed in Jigawa State where 11 abled men were arrested for raping a 12-year-old girl at Limawa in Dutse, the state's capital, leaving this little girl with callous lifetime trauma. These heinous crimes against humanity are condemnable and cannot be condoned in any decent society like ours. The perpetrators too must be made to face justice. Overview of the clauses of the bill. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, various classes of the bill enumerated and spell out how the aims and objectives of this bill will be achieved and enforced. This bill contains 11 clauses. The first two clauses emphasize inter alia that every person, community, and institution shall protect and uphold the right to dignity and freedom of association of victims of rape and insurgency, and not stigmatize them or their children born therein. The third clause lays out that it shall be an offense to stigmatize victims of rape or insurgency and expand on the actions that will amount to this offense. The fourth and fifth clause makes it mandatory for an employer to reabsorb a victim or victims of rape or insurgency, pay their entitlements and the penalties for contravention, respectively. The sixth and seventh clause lay out the rights of an aggrieved party to seek redress in the court of competent jurisdiction and indicates the state high courts as the courts of competent jurisdiction, respectively. The eighth clause empowers the Attorney General and Minister of Justice and the Commissioners of Justice to ensure compliance and enforce the provisions of this bill. The ninth and 10th clause empowers the Minister of Justice to make regulations generally for the purpose of giving effect to the provisions of this bill and for the interpretation, respectively, just as clause 11 is the citation. The provisions as contained in this bill shall apply throughout the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Conclusion. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, we are all aware of the stigmatization faced by victims of rape and insurgency and how it is difficult for them to enforce their rights or seek justice. If this bill is allowed to pass, justice shall be served to the victims of rape and insurgency and by extension, the generality of our citizenry, because the bill will address the injustice that victims of rape and insurgency suffer. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, in view of the foregoing, I urge you all to support the speedy passage of this bill. In compliance with Order 77, subsection 3 of the Senate Standing Order number 2015, as amended, this bill, if passed to law, shall not require any funding because the Attorney General and Minister of Justice and the Commissioners of Justice in various states are empowered to administer and enforce this law. Thank you for your kind attention.
Senator Sandu.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Sandy Ono, Cross River Central. Mr. President, you would recall that about a week or two ago, I had proposed a motion here relating to brutality against women and rape. It is also...
Chief Whip, please, the chamber is noisy.
You would also, like all of us, would also have seen that one of the topmost issues that is gaining currency in Nigeria today is the protest, the unending protest against rape and brutality against women. Once you're in touch with the TV, that is one of the issues that hits you very hard. I granted a couple of interviews after that motion, and one of the things that you would be faced with by journalists is, when is all this going to become a law? How are you people responding practically to these menace? And I said to them, very soon you will hear from us. So I want to commend distinguished Senator Sani Musa for bringing this bill here for second reading. It is a beautiful thing because the nation will see clearly that for us it is actions, not words. They would see clearly that we have a way of moving very quickly from theory to practice. This is a welcome development, and I'm very delighted to be a part of it. Mr. President, a couple of issues have been raised, and I would just like to speak to a few. The first is that we must all seek for ways and means of ensuring that prosecution for rape and brutality against women is accelerated in our judicial process. When you take somebody accused of rape to face the law, and complexities are thrown into the process in such a way that gives advantage to the person who commits rape, it's usually very discouraging for the victims. Let processes be accelerated. Let due attention be given to this very heinous practice, and let justice be served in the way it should be served. One of the things, for instance, in my interaction with lawyers that has been thrown at me is that, look, rape, like murder, should attract no bail. These are some of the issues that I think we should look at when we are examining this bill at the committee level. The second one is the central issue that has been raised in the bill, the issue of stigmatization. I have made the point, and I want to still make it, that we must look for a way of ensuring that these young girls or women do not feel stigmatized at all. The stigma is on the side of the rapist, the beast masquerading as man. That is the person who should be stigmatized, not the victim of the rape. And so parents and these girls should be socialized and educated in such a way and manner that they know this. Because if they summon the audacity and the courage to come to the open all the time and say, look, this man raped me, that man raped me, no matter how close the relationship is, If the person is not conscious of the fact that if it comes to the open, he is stigmatized, nobody should allow any such person become a serial rapist. Because when you don't report these people, when you don't expose them, they also gather the courage to continue to move from one victim to the other. So this bill, like I said, is so critical, is so important, and I support it with every ounce of the energy that I have. Thank you, Mr.
Senator Ike.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. First, let me say that I support this bill. Just last week, one of my friends, an old classmate, wrote a story about a rape victim, and it turned out to be a book. He requested I should write a foreword to that book, which I gladly did. But I recall the interesting story of a young girl that was raped in one of their inter-house sports competitions. How it affected her schooling, how she was humiliated in the village, all the setbacks she suffered, and the embarrassment the family also had. Now, just this morning, one of my constituents from Lagos sent me an email, wanted to find out what we are doing about the growing incident of rape cases. I responded to the email and said that the penal code and the criminal code have sufficient provisions on the offense of rape. But I think the problem really is in terms of the prevention, the investigation, the prosecution, and then the punishment. So I believe that those are outside the purview of the parliament. But however, we have oversight functions to ensure that these things are done. But I'm happy this morning or this afternoon that we are seeing a different dimension of our intervention in the issue of rape in Nigeria. And I want to thank my colleague for bringing this up. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, outside the issue of the punishment, I think there's a social side to this. What has happened in many countries is that they profile those who have committed rape, so that if you are looking for a house, people look at your name and they've committed rape before, you find it extremely difficult to get a house in that neighborhood because the families will be scared about the safety of their family, of their children, especially the young ones. So I believe we need to have proper records of people's convictions and their history and everything that has to do with them. So that when we are dealing with people, you know whom you are dealing with. And I believe that sincerely that this bill is coming at the appropriate time and is sufficiently prepared that we don't need so much debate on it. So I support the bill and I appeal that everybody support this bill so that it can go an easy passage. So I want to thank my colleague, Musa Sani, for bringing this bill. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. I'm sure the sponsor of this bill and our colleagues who contributed to the debate have spoken for all of us. This is a menace that we have to address in our society, and recently it has spiked up. And that means, like Senator Professor Sunday Ono said, we have to be in a haste to pass the legislation in order to arrest the situation. So I believe that now we all are on the same page, and I'll put the question. Those in favor that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to prohibit the stigmatization of victims of rape and insurgency in order to encourage victims of rape to testify in court and victims of insurgency to be reintegrated into the community of his or her choice, and to provide for the prosecution and punishment of any persons or group of persons who stigmatize such victims with a view to uphold and protect their fundamental right to dignity and free association, as provided by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and for related matters, 2020, second reading.
A bill for an act to prohibit the stigmatization of victims of rape and insurgency in order to encourage victims of rape to to testify in court and victims of insurgency to be reintegrated into the community of his or her choice, and to provide for the prosecution and punishment of any persons or group of persons who stigmatize such victims with the view to uphold and protect their fundamental right to dignity and free association as provided by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and for related matters, 2020 second reading taken, and the bill is hereby referred to the Senate Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights, and Legal Matters to report back within 4 weeks. Thank you very much, colleagues. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fifth order of the day is the second reading of the Nigerian Railway Corporation Act, Cap N129, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2020. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 28th May 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Abdul Fattah Buhari to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Senator Abdul Fattah Buhari.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleague, Buhari Abdul Fattah Oyonot. Mr. President, my distinguished colleague, I thank you for the privilege to lead the debate on the general principle of this bill for an act to repeal the Nigerian Railway Corporation Act, Cap 129, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2011, and enact the Nigerian Railway Corporation Bill 2020. This bill was read the first time in this Allo chamber on Thursday, 28 May 2020. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, distinguished senators, before proceeding into the main features of the bill, permit me to make a few comments on the development of the Nigerian Railway Corporation. The Railway Corporation came into force on 3rd October 1912 by the amalgamation of Lagos government and the Barrow-Kano Railway. The railway started as a government department in 1898. It became a statutory body by the virtue of Nigerian Railway Corporation Act of 1955, which was later amended in 1990. Nigeria Rail Network comprises of 3,557 kilometers of narrow gauge track and 674 kilometers of standard gauge track used in many other countries such as India, China, and Italy. The responsibility of Nigerian Railway Corporation as spelled out in the Act establishing it include, but not limited to carriage of passenger goods in a manner that will offer full value for money, meet the cost of operation, improve market share and quality of service, ensure safety in operation and maximum efficiency, meet social responsibility in a manner that will meet the requirement of rail user, trade, commerce, industry, and general public. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it is sad to note that Nigerian Railway Corporation, which used to be an effective and cheaper means of transportation for carriage of goods and passengers in the early 60s, 70s, has been terribly neglected and even abandoned. Despite the step the current administration has taken towards the revitalization and modernization of the railway system, the challenges still remain. We are aware of the fact that railway transport is the strong base of social and industrial activity in both developed and developing countries. In spite of that, having a modern railway transport system remains elusive to Nigeria and Nigerians. Mr. President, my distinguished colleague, this country has many benefits to derive from the revival of railway transport system. Railway transportation ensures cheaper transportation of persons, goods, animals, which in turn brings about lowering of the cost of living within the country. One of the causes of damage to our roads is the frequent use of the roads by heavily loaded long trucks. This is vividly evident on Lagos-Ibadan, Lokoja, Abuja, Kaduna-Kano, Enugu-Port Harcourt, Jos Maiduguri Highways, and many others in the country. The revival of the rail transportation system will take a lot of these long and heavy vehicle, tanker and trailer off our major highway, thereby prolonging the life of these roads and drastically reducing the cost of maintenance. When a good number of these heavy vehicles are taken off the road, there is bound to be greater safety on the road. The heavy and long vehicles have been, and still the causes of accident on our roads, leading to loss of lives and property. Railway services in Nigeria were effectively in area where they were operating. Therefore, bringing the Nigerian railways back on track is very important, and how this can be achieved will depend on how this distinguished Senate passes this bill. It is noteworthy that the impact of the railway on the development of Nigerian economy was such that it enhanced the exportation of groundnut from about 10,000 tons in 1912 to an average of 40,000 tons per annum during the following decade. This assertion has been made by many writers in Nigeria. An overview of the bill showed that the bill has 20 parts and 203 clauses, as against the Extant Act, which has 28 parts and 99 sections. The increase in the number of parts is primarily due to the introduction of new ones, and the increase in the number of clauses is to make provision for concession processes. One important observation is that the function of the minister under the Extant Act have to be reviewed, because at the time the act was enacted, the minister was a member of parliament, unlike now, where the present minister is outside the parliament. Any addition to the bill is a clause which stipulates that corporations shall maintain zonal offices in the 6th geopolitical zone of the Federation. By this provision, the usual complaint of neglect by geopolitical zone shall no more arise. Mr. President, my respected colleagues, in comparison to the Extant Act, additional power for the board have been included in the bill. This additional power make provision for A, the appointment of secretary for the corporation and other employees of the corporation. B, the establishment of zonal offices and other operational sites as the corporation may deem necessary. Other commendable provisions under this bill are the appointment of the chairman and member of the board, as well as the managing director of the corporation by the president, subject to the confirmation by the Senate. This will provide the checks and balances required in running the corporation. Mr. President, my respected colleagues, other additional provisions in this bill include increase in penalty, which deal with drunkenness for any railway employee while on duty, also take into cognizance the present-day security reality and provide for sanction for people who carry offensive and dangerous material aboard the train. Mr. President, my distinguished colleague, the passage of this bill will, among other things, fast-track the country economy and generate thousands of skilled and semi-skilled jobs nationwide, and will also provide a legal framework for the most effective, affordable, energy-saving, and environmental-friendly form of transportation of goods and services across the country. I sincerely thank you for listening to me and your anticipated desire support. Mr. President, like I said yesterday, this is the second bill that was passed in this chamber at the 8th Assembly, and they sent them back to us for us to do 1 or 2 amendments before we are just selling the second bill to do the necessary legislative work. Thank you very much, Mr.
Senator Brown will be.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues. I stand to second this motion, this bill presented by Senator Buhari. This bill is very important. I remember we discussed this bill in the 8th Senate. The bill was passed. We passed third reading, and it was taken to the President. The President looked at it and then also did not assent it, but sent it back to the Senate. And then it was, I think there were some items he wanted to be included. And this was also done in that. It was sent to him, but of course, unfortunately, it was not assented to. So I think we have deliberated on this, because I think this is the bill that we spent a lot of time in that 8th Senate to discuss. we were going back and forth, until we were able to finish it. So I think really we don't have to spend much time to debate on this bill because this bill has been passed and so many other things have been done on the bill. So I sincerely hope that we will just go ahead and then pass this bill for the second reading so that we can be able to speed up the process. Thank you very much.
Before I put the question, let me call on Senator Kabirga. You have anything to
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I think Senator Gobur has raised the issue I really wanted to raise. It's a straightforward motion. I remember that time Senator Ashafa was the chairman, and this was done after the last, it was done for third reading, it was compiled and sent to the President. And the President brought in his observations, which were taken care of. So, Mr. President, I agree with what Senator Gorbis said, that we should just go ahead and speed the track because it has already been discussed in the Senate. Thank you, sir.
So, in a way, we have seconded his motion. Okay. Those in favor that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, the bill for an act to repeal the Nigerian Railway Corporation Act, Cap N129, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2011, and to enact the Nigerian Railway Corporation Act, 2020, for the efficient and effective railway system in Nigeria and for other related matters, 2020, second reading.
A bill for an act to repeal the Nigeria Railway Corporation Act, Cap N129, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2011, and to enact the Nigeria Railway Corporation Act, 2020, for the efficient and effective railway system in Nigeria and for other related matters, 2020, second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Land Transport to report by within 4 weeks. Thank you, Senate. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the sixth order of the day is the second reading of the Federal College of Complementary and Alternative Medicine of Nigeria, Establishment, etc. Bill 2020. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this distinguished chamber on Tuesday, 19th March 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Ibrahim Yahya Oloregbe to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Yahya Ibrahim Oloregbe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, with your kind indulgence, I seek to lead the debate on the second reading of the bill for the establishment and incorporation of Federal College of Traditional, Complementary, and Alternative Medicine of Nigeria. Just like the leader said, the bill was read in this Allo chamber for the first time on the 19th day of March 2020. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, before the introduction of Western medical practice into Nigeria in 1860 by the Roman Catholic missionaries, specifically in Abeokuta, our people, that is the people that are existing in the land that's currently Nigeria, use the traditional medicine practice to heal and cure various illnesses that affected them. They were able to achieve some successes in addressing the medical challenges that they face. However, with the introduction of Western medical practices, the traditional medical practices has been relegated and not given necessary attention to harness its advantages and improve in its practices. Background and previous effort. Traditional complementary and alternative medicine is widely practiced all over the world, particularly in Asian countries such as India and China, and in some Western European countries such as Germany and US, to complement the efforts of conventional or orthodox type of medicine. In Nigeria, the formalization of the system began at about 1977 with the realization by the government of the indispensable role traditional alternative medicine could play in the country's healthcare delivery system. Towards that end, the government sponsored 4 experts to India and China
at different times to study alternative medicine as practiced in those countries. As a result of that effort, the Nigerian government promulgated Decree 38 in 1988, establishing alternative medicine and recognizing the practitioner as members of Medical Representation Board of Nigeria then. In 1992, another decree was promulgated under the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria, providing the legal basis for the practice of all forms of traditional, complementary, and alternative medicine in Nigeria. However, no institution or organization recognized by government indulged in these practices until 2007, when a school and a clinic were established for training and practice of traditional, complementary, and alternative medicine. The various components of the traditional complementary medicine introduced then include, in addition to traditional medicine, acupuncture, homeopathy, naturopathy, and osteopathy. There are Nigerians that have traveled to countries such as China, USA, India, Sri Lanka, etc., to study one field of traditional complementary medicine or another, and they are practicing in the country with or without license. The first attempt to legalize the establishment of a college for the traditional complementary medicine was in 2008, when on the 16th day of October 2008, the bill was read for the first time in the Allocation chamber of this Senate, but did not go beyond the first reading. However, in 2013, the bill was again presented and it scaled through the second reading, but did not achieve passage nor subsequent legislative intervention. The objective of this current bill is very much similar to what the previous attempt. It's aimed at providing legislative backing for the College of Traditional, Complementary and Medicine, which was created as an agency under Federal Ministry of Health, but was shut down again in 2011 due to deficiencies in establishment and its operations. In the light of our present-day realities, especially the ongoing challenges of COVID-19 pandemic, and the need to find cure for it from available local apps and traditional medicine, the need for a college such as this cannot be overemphasized. With this bill, the Federal College of Traditional, Complementary and Alternative Medicine will become a legal institution for the training and retraining of traditional, complementary, and alternative medicine professionals in Nigeria, and will enable the implementation of the World Health Organization Traditional Medicine Strategy 2014 to 2023. The college will improve the standard of practice of the practitioners of traditional, complementary, and alternative medicine, provide increased access and choices to citizens in their healthcare behavior. It will improve the coordination of evidence-based medicine in the field of Nigerian indigenous medicine, because currently that's part of the challenge we have with COVID-19, because the evidence base of some of the claims by the various practitioners cannot be achieved. It also updates the extent of usage of traditional medicine in Nigeria and facilitate the implementation of national policy on integrative medicine. It will strengthen cooperation between the traditional and complementary and alternative medicine providers and other orthodox healthcare providers. The domestication of the training, instead of spending huge resources to train people outside, just as I mentioned earlier, will prevent unnecessary wastage of hard-earned foreign currency, which could be put to other essential services. The college, if well established, will also serve as training hub for West African sub-region. Mr. President, in view of the foregoing, my highly respected and listening colleagues, I urge you to support the second reading of this bill and indeed the subsequent passage of the bill into law for the benefit of our teeming constituents who believe in and use traditional and alternative medicine to address their health challenges. In compliance with Order 77 sub 3 of the standing rule of this Senate, a compendium of financial application of the bill is attached. Thank you, Mr. President and listening colleagues, for your attention. I urge you for your support.
Senator Gordon Olujumi.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I am elated this afternoon because this is a bill that is overdue for consideration. Let me just first thank Senator Dr. Ibrahim Yahya Oluriegbe for bringing up this bill. There's no doubt that over the years, we've had traditional medicines with us, but we've been so laid back about it and we've not done anything meaningful as at today. If we had done something meaningful, we won't be scampering around with COVID-19. We would have had certain herbs that would have been produced over time, which we could easily call upon. And the problem with Nigeria is that we're never proud of whatever is our own. We always want anything that is imported and has been certified by people outside of our shores. The time is now to look inwards and to buy Nigeria at all times. I believe that if this bill is passed, we will be empowering our people. The people who are drinking shepe and opayi all over the place would at least have correct measurement to take. And the people who are producing will also be able to trade properly like they do in other countries. We wouldn't have been running after Madagascar COVID concussion if we had a bill like this that had empowered our people and had made them know that the herbs that we have are also as potent or more potent than what they have elsewhere. Mr. President, I support this wholeheartedly, and I believe this is the only way by which we can move forward, conserve foreign exchange, and also build confidence in the people who are working day and night to ensure that our health is preserved. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, I think we will limit ourselves to 2 minutes because we have 4 motions, and these are motions we agreed to take today. So we should restrict ourselves to 2 minutes per contribution. Senator Tolu Odibi.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, let me first of all commend my good friend, distinguished colleague, Dr. Ibrahim Yaya Oluregbe, for sponsoring this bill. This is a bill that I strongly support, and it's a bill that I think it's timely. Bear in mind the current pandemic that we are going through. What this bill does, really, is to bring to fore and formalize our own, some of the inherent opportunities that we have in this country. And I think what this bill does is also indirectly saves lives, because what you have out now are a lot of quacks who are selling all kinds of concoctions, pretending to be life-saving remedy. So I think formalizing these traditional medicine into an institutional framework also presents a lot of opportunities for us as a country, because in the course of these institutions, we don't know what kind of discoveries may be found and how viable those discoveries could be in terms of commercialization, which in turn can also become very profitable for the country. So I think this is a very good bill. It's a bill that definitely is timely. It's a bill that we need in this country. And it's a bill that also can help us to grow our own in-house solutions to so many things. We know there are so many drugs out there, so many local drugs out there that solve hypertension, cholesterol, and all those kind of things. And I think if we can bring them into real regulated and formalized structure, I think this will go a long way. So I strongly support this bill, and I congratulate my good friend for bringing this bill to the floor. Thank you.
Okay, let me say this. The PDP, our colleagues in the minority, will be holding a meeting at 2 p.m. We read the letter, and this chamber is magnanimous, especially the APC. So we will ensure that you go for the meeting at 2 p.m. Apparently, a decision to move to the right side. So I want to urge all of us that we limit our contribution because we have 4 motions that we agreed to take today. So even if it is just a sponsor and someone to contribute, we should take the motions. Okay. Senator Sadiq Suleiman Umar.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, I am Sadiq Suleiman Umar. I represent the good and decent people of Kwara North. Mr. President, this bill is indeed coming actually very, very late because the reality is that all over the world, especially in developing countries, 80% of citizens depend on traditional medicine, alternative medicine. That's the reality. Because of obvious reasons, the cost of modern medicine is high, it's not available to the downtrodden. So in a sense, alternative traditional medicine is actually like a primary health care in our society. But the problem we have with this is lack of standardization, control that leads to toxicities, polypharmacy, and so on. Establishing this institution will solve almost all of the challenges and problems associated with traditional alternative medicine practice. Therefore, Mr. President, without saying much, I support this bill, and I urge all of us to support this bill so that we can have the best health care that is accessible, affordable to our people, given the amount of poverty that is already ravaging us, and we want our people to be healthy so that we can get developed. The best option is to enhance traditional alternative complementary medicine practice. And the starting point is an institution with a curriculum that will train professionals that will meet up with international standards. And in fact, because of our richness in culture and in herbs, we should start exporting traditional medical products very, very soon if we are able to establish this school. Thank you very much, Mr.
Those in favor that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, the bill for an act to provide for the establishment and incorporation of the Federal College of Traditional, Complementary, and Alternative Medicine of Nigeria, Abuja, and to make comprehensive provisions for its due administration and for matters connected therewith, 2020, second reading.
A bill for an act to provide for the establishment and incorporation of the Federal College of Traditional, Complementary, and Alternative Medicine of Nigeria, Abuja, and to make comprehensive provisions for its due administration and for matters connected therewith, 2020 second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Senate Committee on Health, Tertiary, Secondary, and Tertiary to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the seventh order of the day is the second reading of the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority Act, Amendment Bill 2020. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 19th March 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Albert Basi Akpan to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Senator Albert Basi Akpan.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleague, Senator Albert Basi Akpan, Akpan North East. Mr. President, I stand here to lead the debate on the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority Establishment, etc. Act CAP 166 LFN 2004 Amendment Bill 2020. This bill is co-sponsored by 4 other senators as stated in the debate. Your Excellency, Mr. President, and distinguished colleagues, it is my honor and privilege to lead this debate on the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority Establishment Act, CAP 166 N166 LFN 2004 Amendment Bill 2020. This bill was first read on the 19th of March 2020. This bill seeks to amend the Nigerian Sovereign Development Authority, etc. Act Cap 166, Laws of Federation of Nigeria 2004 NSIA Act, specifically proposing amendment to Section 30 Sub 1 and Section 47 Sub 2 of the NSIA Act to provide for additional funding of the sovereign wealth funds through a statutory allocation funds from the monthly revenue accruing to the Federation account. In addition, Mr. President, the amendment will also strengthen the operations and withdrawals from the sovereign wealth funds by the Federation to boost trust and confidence of the federating units in the operations of the funds to the benefit of all. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, given Nigerian dependence on oil, our economy is susceptible to threats of oil price fluctuations, volatility, and recently, the fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic when oil price fell to as low as $12 per barrel and even negative, leaving the Federation with little or no income due to the higher cost of oil and gas production. Although the country currently maintains an excess crude account as a stabilization fund to augment shortfalls in actual revenue performance in the course of implementing the budget within a fiscal year, this account has been depleted to nearly zero balance to date, leaving the country with no fallback options at times like this. Mr. President, my distinguished and resident colleagues, the strength, security, and prosperity of any nation is measured by its ability to ensure and guarantee saving securitization for rainy days. We can't therefore pretend to be ignorant of this ignoble argument, just like in the other countries of the world. For instance, Russia, due to the experience and effects of the 2015 world economic meltdown, transferred $550 billion to its sovereign wealth funds. And today, Russia is set to introduce strict rules over the use of its national wealth funds, all in a bid to maintain its mountain of reserves for the rainy days. The country recently, in a bid to maintain, the country recently boasted of its ability to withstand any global economic shock, since it can afford to spend $50 billion annually for another 10 years without recourse to any other revenue. There is a great need to provide an additional and consistent funding for our sovereign wealth funds for specific purpose of stabilizing the economy in a period of economic adversity like now. Success does not come from what we do occasionally, but from what we do consistently. Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues, while we strongly emphasize the need for a consistent and dedicated saving culture to safeguard the Nigerian economy going forward, due to the rapidly changing dynamics and volatility of the global oil and gas market, it is interesting to note that the Nigerian Sovereign Wealth Authority, NSIA, was established by Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, Sovereign Act, etc. Act Cap N166 LFN 2004 in 2011, with an initial takeoff funds of $1 billion, an additional $400 million grant from the federal government. Thereafter, an additional transfer of the recently recovered late Senate Sani Abacha loot of $315 billion. Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, today, the fund has generated over $250 million as an additional income and came in handy for the entire Federation with the release of $150 million to the country as a seed fund to support the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Let me also state here that the Sovereign Wealth Fund, through its infrastructure fund, is currently funding the completion of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, Second Niger Bridge, as well as the East-West Road. These projects are to be told by the Sovereign Wealth Funds to recover its investment over time. Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues, the Nigerian Sovereign Wealth Fund is currently the third largest in sub-Saharan Africa, after Botswana and Angola, who have a current asset of $6.9 billion and $5 billion respectively. However, Nigeria's total current value is still far below these countries. This bill has taken into cognizance the experiences of other countries like Angola, Botswana, Norway, United Arab Emirates, United States of America, USA, Australia, and especially Russia, which have the same law and practice of sovereign wealth funds with the extant regime in Nigeria, and most of them have grown their sovereign wealth funds considerably over time. For instance, Russian national wealth was given an initial $32 billion before the additional $550 billion in 2015. Today, it's a different story, as earlier mentioned. In the same vein, the Australian Future Fund, established in 2006, with an initial deposit of 18 billion Australian dollars derived from government surpluses, was valued at $166 billion Australian dollars as of September 2019. Alaska Permanent Fund, which belongs to only a state of Alaska in America, provides for an investment of at least 25% of proceeds from oil and gas sales as royalties. The fund assets grew from an initial investment of $734 million in 1977 to the sum of approximately $40.3 billion as at July 2012. In Norway, the value of the sovereign wealth fund, which is the world's largest, has grown to a record of $1.09 trillion. Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, to allay the fears and apprehension of the subnational government, which is the states and local government, on the appropriation of the fund, the proposed amendment of the section 47 sub 2 of the Extant Act now vests the power of withdrawal from the stabilization fund of sovereign wealth funds on the National Economic Council upon the recommendation of the Minister of Finance. This, in addition to section 32 of the Fiscal Act, which upholds the notional ownership of the fund by the various federating units of government, further strengthens the securitization and confidence of the federating units of government in the prudent management and operations of our sovereign wealth funds. Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, permit me to state that a cursory reading and literal interpretation of the generality of the operation of the Sovereign Wealth Fund Act shows that its main purpose is to stimulate economic development by means of reducing inflationary pressure and insulating the national economy from volatility in the price of non-renewable resources. This purpose can only be achieved by the efficient management through this amendment to grow our sovereign wealth funds and serve for the rainy day, hence the need for the speedy passage of this bill. I thank you, my distinguished President and my distinguished colleagues, for your support towards the speedy passage of this bill into law. And I therefore humbly move that this bill be read the second time. I so move, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
I hope you are not counting your, chicken before they are hatched? Please, I will take only one contribution, and it is going to be short, so that we're able to take this. In 10 minutes, we have to take 4 motions. Yes. And we can't extend time because our colleagues in PDP will have to go for this. Senator Geshambasi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Geshambasi, Cross River South. Mr. President, I rise to support this amendment wholeheartedly. I think that clearly sovereign wealth funds are key to the macroeconomic stability of any country, and Nigeria can be no different. A situation where we have an excess crude account, which is not legislated for and has no serious controls over, is something that we need to look at properly. We have to frown at that. We need a proper savings arrangement which will ensure that we can grow the wealth that we have and grow investments, and issues of excess crude can be grown. As we have seen here in this presentation, various countries have grown their sovereign wealth funds over time, and this has created macroeconomic stability. So because there is no time, I will quickly just say that I support this motion wholeheartedly, and I think that the sooner we can implement this, the better. I support this bill wholeheartedly, and the sooner this can be implemented, the better. We must grow our sovereign wealth fund. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Those in favor that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Flag of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, the bill for an act to amend the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority Act, Cap N166, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, and for matters connected therewith, 2020, second reading.
A bill for an act to amend the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority Act, Cap N166, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, and for matters connected there with 2020 second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Senate Committee on Finance to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the eighth order of the day is a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Iddm and two others on the demise of His Excellency Evangelist Bamidele Olumelua, former governor of Old Ondo State. Mr. President, you may wish to recall that yesterday, 9th June 2020, the Senate, by Order 42, subsection 2 of our standing order, approved that this motion be moved on the next legislative day, which is today. Accordingly, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Iddm to move the motion.
Senator Iddm, I don't know whether you'll be able to read the entire motion. All right, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Iddm Ekiti South. In fact, I will paraphrase everything and get it done in a few minutes. Mr. President, thank you very much for giving me the indulgence to move this motion. In fact, this motion is the brainchild of Senator Olubomi Adetumbi, but he didn't want to come into my senatorial district without my utmost acceptance. That's why I took it up. And it is also co-sponsored by Senator Borough-Fils, who is in league with the old men, and Senator Bamidele Okoyemi. Mr. President, the Senate notes with grief the death of His Excellency Evangelist Bamidele Ishola Olomelua, former executive governor of the old Ondo State, a statesman and a revered elder and one of the founding fathers of today's Ekiti State, who passed away on Thursday, 4th of June, 2020 at his hometown in Ikere, Ekiti, at the age of 80 years. Evangelist Olomelua had his working career in the Public Service Commission in the Western region in Ibadan as Assistant Secretary Employment, which was in the year 1965. The Senate recalls that in 1971 he was first Secretary Economic Education and Political Matters, the Embassy of Nigeria in The Hague, Netherlands. And in 1972, he was first Secretary, Economic Education and Political Affairs at the Nigerian High Commission, Ottawa, Canada. He was also Counselor and Permanent Mission of Nigeria in the United Nations in New York from 1975 to 1976. The Senate is aware that he contested and lost the Ondo senatorial district elections in 1982 under the Unity Party of Nigeria due to allegations of massive rigging carried out by the then NPN. And while the case was in court, the military took over, and again for another 10 years. He was appointed Chairman Peace Committee of Ikere. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, he won the governorship election on the platform of the SDP in 1992 and was sworn in as the second executive governor of Ondo State, the present Ondo and Ekiti states. During his tenure, he embraced the values of the Social Democratic Party. His administration was credited with the implementation of several social welfare policies and programs aimed at improving the lives of the masses. He was a firm believer in the fairness and equity. In fairness and equity, two principles which guided his service to the state. The Senate will recall that he was originally a foundation member of the People's Democratic Party and served as chairman of the Nigerian Christian Pilgrims Board. He later joined the ranks of the Action Congress of Nigeria, ACN, as one of the founding members. And in recognition, the Ekiti State government, in recognition of his wealth of experience as a public administrator, the Ekiti State government in 2011 appointed him the Chancellor of Ekiti State University, Ado Ekiti. He serves in this post till 2014. He left behind a loving family and a strong political legacy. The Senate is further convinced that His Excellency Evangelist Ulumilua was a loving family man, a courageous leader, and a founding father of the current Ekiti state, who always speak the truth even in the face of daunting challenges and risk to life, and aware that his demise is not only a loss to his family, and in particular, but to Ekiti, Ondo states, and Nigeria in general, accordingly resolves to observe a minute silence in his honor and condole with the family, governments, and people of Ekiti and Ondo states. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Bikulamoso.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ibikunle Amosun, I represent Ogun Central. For want of time, let me quickly say that I commend the mover of this motion, and I want to say that I support it in entirety. This is, I call him Governor Baba Bamidele Ulumilua. It's a diplomat, a gentleman, a politician of note. Indeed, Mr. President, gradually the ranks of our elders are being depleted one after another. And I think we really, truly must celebrate them. We celebrated them while they are alive, and we are celebrating them now while they are no longer with us. So I want to enjoy the Senate to allow this motion and the prayers therein to go in honor of this, what I call a politician of note, a politician that tasted both worlds. He started with PDP, he found himself in ACN, in all the parties, he discharged himself creditably, sir. So I second and support this motion, Mr. President.
Senator Francis Warren.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Francis, village of Adansi, from Osun East. Evangelist Bamidele Oluyua, as you can read through his political activities, was a great leader in the Southwest and in Nigeria as a general. He became prominent in all the ramifications of social life and religious life. I think if we go one by one, we are going to waste a lot of time. His position will be so difficult to...
Distinguished, you have less than a minute because we have to go through the prayers and do 1 minute silence. So if you can round up, please.
Well, I think we sympathize with the family and the Southwest generally and Nigeria. May his soul rest in peace.
Amen. We'll go to the prayers. Prayer 1, observe a minute silence in his honor. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. And prayer 2, condole with his family, governments, and the people of Ekiti and Ondo states. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. 1 minute silence. May his gentle soul rest in perfect peace. Amen. No, leader. No, not point of order. We just, let me say this. Those of us who have their motions, we are very sorry we are already 2 p.m. and our colleagues in PDP would have to go for their meeting. So we'll have to stand down the consideration with the remaining items on the other paper, leader.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, having come to the exclusion of time allowed for deliberations under our Order 13, I move that we suspend consideration of all other items on the order paper until another legislative day. I so move.
Leader, minority leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion as moved.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we stand down the consideration of the remaining items on the other paper till another legislative day say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader, adjournment.
Mr. President, till tomorrow, 11th of the month of June 2020, at 10 o'clock.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I second the motion that's moved.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we adjourn till tomorrow, Thursday, the 11th day of June 2020 at 10 a.m. from say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. The Senate is hereby adjourned till tomorrow, Thursday, the 11th day of June 2020 at 10 a.m. prompt.